Hello, everybody, and welcome to a webinar presented by Ariel, spoken by us, and on inclusion. And it's called Bringing Inclusion Full Circle. And I'm Shawn, and this is Sandra. We'll tell you a little bit more about ourselves in a moment. But first, I'm going to talk about how I see Sandra. I see Sandra as a very hands-on person. She likes doing things. She likes learning by doing. She loves technology. I happen to know her dietary habits. She's a donut addict. She is good-natured, as we can see.
Really?
She sometimes daydreams.
Just sometimes.
She's creative and artistic.
Okay, so it's my turn now to talk about Shawn, how I see Shawn. So I know that Shawn struggles with routines. I know that he loves technology. Actually, I think he loves technology more than I do because I still have paper on my hand. He loves to eat, especially if it's Portuguese food, okay? He can be moody, right? Not often, but just sometimes. He often gets distracted. And this is true. He gets caught up in details. He's really, really careful with details.
Can I defend myself now?
No, but yeah, okay, go.
Well, let me tell you about why I'm here. I happen to be an English teacher, and I happen to have taught for well over 20 years. I teach at an international house. And yes, I really love technology. And I also love students. And I love the fact that we have so many different kinds of students. And I think that's why inclusion is so important.
Yeah, the same thing with me. I've also been an English teacher for over 20 years. Currently, I'm teaching at ISEP and at a private language school. But for many years, for over 16 years, I worked with escolas profissionais. So I was kind in the middle of very challenging students. And one of the things that really interested me was trying to discover what made them so challenging. And I understood that quite often it was because of underlying conditions, things such as ADHD, for example, okay? So that has led me to, along with Shawn, really look into some activities and things that we could do to improve our students' results.
So let's tell you about what we're going to do today. We're going to start off by surveying experiences. So this requires interaction on your part. Please have your mobile phone handy or have another browser window open alongside YouTube, okay? We're going to survey experiences, then we're going to move on. And we're going to view guiding documentation and goals. From there, we will explore a range of activities, and this is the fun part and the meat of the whole presentation. From there, we're going to propose tips to support inclusion. And then finally, we will wrap up and bring inclusion full circle.
Like Shawn said, this is going to be a webinar when we do expect you to participate. So apart from your input on a number of activities, so that we'll be talking directly to you, we would love to know what you think about it. Please write in the comments. And also, questions, we will have some time for questions at the end. Okay, so if you have any questions whatsoever, make a little note there and then we'll address those at the end, okay?
So let's start up by looking at two students, Tomás and Beatriz.
Okay, so first of all, I need to tell you something because I'm a proud mom. This was made by my oldest boy, Rafa. Okay, so this is a piece of art. Sorry, that was my proud mom moment. Okay, so I'm going to read the report cards Tomás and Beatriz received at Christmas, okay? So this is what teachers have to say about Beatriz. Beatriz is a sweet girl. She's polite, but needs to participate more in class activities. She seems to be daydreaming all the time. She doesn't seem to pay attention to details and therefore makes silly mistakes. She needs to pay more attention in class and make all the extra exercises I've set for homework.
So does that mean that she's a dreamy girl and she really needs to work more?
Yeah, it means that the teachers understand that they need to give her more work. So she's getting probably extra homework, different from the rest of the class. Then we have Tomás, okay? And Tomás has a lot of potential. He isn't afraid to speak his mind, but is rather impulsive and occasionally says things he later regrets. He is very talkative and sometimes distracts his mates. Tomasz needs to be more focused, for example. He should make a bigger effort to stay still as he keeps fidgeting and moving in his chair.
So he can be a good speaker in class. He can be very good when he's under control, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
the thing is that because he speaks out of term, because he tends to interrupt, and he can't stand still, right? So this is a big problem. And teachers believe that if he's able to control these, he'll be able to achieve better results.
So sit still.
Yeah, sit still. Okay, so I'm not sure if you are able to recognize Beatriz and Tomasz in some of your students. I'm pretty sure you can, right? So what we're going to do now is an activity where we're going to find about your students, okay? So have your phone nearby. You're going to need a QR code reader, okay? Or you can just go to the website menti.com and enter this code. We're going to leave the slide here just for a couple of seconds so that you can get there. Yep. If you use the QR code, you don't need to input any code.
Yeah, just take a picture of the screen, or if you don't have that functionality, this is the web link, and that's the code. Now let me just tell you what you're going to see in a moment, because it's really cool. You're going to see what you and your colleagues say about Tomasz and Beatriz being a part of their classroom. And we're going to see as it goes along that it's going to move in one direction or another. So we really hope that you can interact in the next minute or two. So let's go over and see if anybody's said anything so far. Okay, so here we have, I'm just going to say what we're trying to look for. We're trying to find, perhaps, whether or not there are students that write in an incoherent and disorganized way. We might find students that find it difficult to stay on challenging tasks. We may find students that are easy to motivate, okay, on the other side of the spectrum. We may have students who have disorganized notebooks. We may have students that don't seem to pay attention to instructions. We may have students that frequently interrupt or answer out of turn. And we may have students who really enjoy learning English. So they're on the scale of hardly ever and often. Now, just to tell you about my classroom, but maybe Sandra, in your classroom, do you have any of these in your classroom?
I've got quite a few, actually. One of the biggest issues is when students write in a disorganized way. And this often comes because they also have disorganized notebooks. So it's difficult for them to find some sort of logic in the middle of the chaos that their minds are using to write their notes. Also, I think that it's a common problem that a lot of them don't seem to pay attention to instructions, right? We just, I wish I could have an euro for each time I give instructions, and then the minute I finish, someone goes like, what are we supposed to do? What do we have to do? And often in Portuguese, not in English, as it should be, right? What about you, Shawn?
Yeah, well, I will say that I'm happy about this one, having easy to motivate students, I think, and ones that enjoy learning English, but I do have, in particular, frequently interrupting or answering out of turn. Mm-hmm. And these can be students who are really great at speaking English, and I quite value interaction, but taking away the whole class from the activity, and it becomes a problem.
Yeah, and sometimes it's disruptive because you would rather they didn't speak at that time, either because you want other students to be able to participate, or you want them to have some quiet time first, and often they don't think before they answer, and you know that if they just waited just a minute or two longer, mm-hmm. they would just be able to give you the right answer, right?
And that would be a great thing, but unfortunately, it just stops the whole thing.
Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Oh my God. Why aren't we able to? Let's see if it's going to help.
Okay, let's see what everybody said, because we've had a lot of people already submit their results, which is a great thing.
Okay. All right.
51 people have answered.
Yeah. So technology has these things, right? So let's just, Shawn, do you think we can go to the...
To the PowerPoint.
No,
yes.
not the PowerPoint. Sorry. Can we go to the... Go back. Go back. That's it.
Okay.
You know, technology does have these things.
And I know that
Yeah.
many teachers have had this kind of thing happen,
Yeah.
especially in the online environment.
Yeah. So imagine
There we
what
go.
it's like when we're trying to present and do a webinar and this happens, just like crazy. Let's see if it's better now. I hope so.
Okay.
Okay, results are... No, it's still not showing the results. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Maybe we'll come back to that a little bit
We
in the
will.
later on. But what we know is the case is that the concerns that Sandra and I have found in our classroom, I'm sure, are very similar in your classrooms. So, with no further ado, and perhaps during the question and answer session, that would be a great time to revisit that.
Yeah.
Because, and this is a really nice way of getting feedback from students as well. So just remember Mentimeter. Next time, we'll show you a better indication of how it works. Let's move on now to the reason why we're all here, I suppose, besides the fact that we have these needs.
Yeah.
Decreto Ley number 54.
And number 55. Even
number
though we
55.
only put number 54 there, we know that 54 and 55 have been two documents that have been on the back of our head for quite a long time now, right?
So a couple important points from this part is that diversity in the classroom is an advantage. It's a mais-valia, as it says here.
Yeah.
So we do have to keep that in mind, that even the challenging students do bring something to the classroom for sure. But what it requires from us is that we change our teaching processes and we provide special characteristics, special conditions for certain students.
So basically what we're doing is we're becoming tailors in a sense, because we're tailoring activities so that we have a better range of activities that are suitable for more students at different moments within our classes.
So
We then have the, I'm sorry, Shawn, to
Please go
interrupt you.
ahead.
It's the medidas universais, right? Everybody nowadays has been talking about universal measures, and specific measures, if that's the case. But the idea is that these are supposed to bring flexibility into our classroom, right? And it allows us to concentrate on helping the student at a certain moment. So it doesn't mean that we're going to have to help him always, okay? But at the same time, we have to think that if a student was able to succeed by us using those measures, then we shouldn't remove them right away. Maybe we should keep on working with them for a bit longer.
to work with them and let them learn on their own, providing them with conditions such that they can achieve and that they can come to a common base of skills. Okay, that's what's important. There's going to be this base of skills for everybody in the classroom.
Yeah, even though we know that they don't all have to get there at the same time or at the same pace.
And we can't forget the really strong learners either, which is a very important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, otherwise they run the risk of also being very demotivated.
So of course that means that we have to diversify things and we have to use combination of different materials in the classroom, not just do one type of activity for sure, but at the same time when we're doing an activity we can propose various forms of that activity, which you're going to see today. We have some suggestions for you.
Hopefully it works for you. All right, so diversity is extremely important, right? And so is inclusion.
Inclusion, yes.
Inclusion, right? And empathizing as well, and equity as well, right? Giving students the same opportunities, because that's basically what we're trying to do. We are acknowledging the fact that not all students learn in the same way or at the same time, and we're trying to, within a classroom, to give them some tools, some help, so that they can get to the goal, the ultimate goal, which is to learn the language. Right? Can I move on,
Yep,
Shawn?
please.
So what does this mean for us?
Flexibility. Okay, we have to be very flexible. This may be flexibility in our planning, but also flexibility in execution during the classroom. Execution of the lesson plan, I mean to say.
And flexibility in dealing with these students, because sometimes their behavior can be quite challenging as well, right?
Of course, that means versatile, but we have to be intuitive. And so we have to really look at what our class makeup is and say, what kinds of things can I do to just tweak this, to change it so that it adapts to more people? Okay, the same activity can be just changed a little bit for more people, right?
And that means being prepared. Obviously, you can't go into a class where you know that you're going to have a student, two students, or a group of students who are struggling at that moment and just go straight from the book, right? We know that. We already do that intuitively, but we really need to be prepared for classes like these.
And for the unexpected.
Exactly.
So, of course, that does mean we need to work extra hard. So everybody goes in the same direction at a similar pace, but not at the same pace. We know this. So we have, as teachers, need to stay motivated to make sure that there's communication in the classroom and not just finishing activities. Okay?
Yeah, because there's a lot of talk about student motivation and students need to be motivated and I have to motivate my students. But what about me?
What about us?
Yeah, what about me as a teacher? If I don't feel like going in a class, how do I overcome that? Well, usually it involves preparing, right? If I'm prepared, if I know, if I have a team that supports me and I've got the right activities, I'll be able to engage the class more. And by engaging the class, I'll also be able to motivate myself. So it's hopefully a circle.
And while recognizing routines, I also think variety.
Yeah.
Because then everybody gets something.
Yeah. All right, so let's move into the fun part now. Let's take a look at routines, activities, sorry, right? If you're wondering what the elephant is doing there, don't worry. I'm not ignoring the elephant in the room, but I'll talk to you in a minute about it, okay? Here we go.
Not a white elephant, but it's an elephant.
Yeah, it's not a white elephant.
So as we know, we need materials. We've been acknowledging this very much. One of the resources we're going to talk about today is the Escola Virtual, because we're going to show how when you go to the Escola Virtual, for example, in Between Six, all the materials that you have in the lovely binders are online. And this is so important. This is so important because, of course, you can cut and paste these materials, put them into Word and change them. And they will need to be changed for certain
Also,
students.
Coming from the experience we all had last year, where we all had to move online, right? We've been able to create classes, and by being able to create a class, you're also able to assign students specific exercises. So this is a way of differentiating your classes material. So you can go and you can say, okay, this student in particular is going to need more of this or more of that. So using online resources can be a fantastic way of incorporating a little bit of technology into your classroom.
And it is a challenge, but the good thing is it's not like having to run to the photocopier and photocopy. Now you can put it online.
Okay, so we've got first we're going to start with a writing activity.
This one is from Top Teen 7, forthcoming. And this is what the card will look like when it comes out.
Yeah. So basically the structure of the activity is similar to a lot of activities we have on our books. It's got a text that provides a model, right? And then it's got the instructions and the prompts. So in this case, if you look at the instructions, it says you have to write a short personal introduction in about 20 to 35 words. Don't forget to mention, and then you've got all the things. Now, if you've got students that have a hard time paying attention to instructions, don't read things till the very end, or they tend to forget details, right? This is going to be a lot of information in one task for them to be able to accomplish this.
Because linguistically, I'm sure they can write any one of these sentences in isolation, but to follow these directions will be a big challenge for some students.
Okay, so how do we change this? What can we do with this one? Well, what Shawn and I did here was this. So we went to the prompts and we saw what was asked of the student, and we color coded them. And then we marked the colors here in the example text so that the students are able to recognize exactly what each sentence is doing, okay? And then we also adapted the instructions. So shorter instructions, more direct, starting with the verb, starting with the action of what you want the student to do, and focusing on the most important information, which is to write personal information, write between 20 to 35 words, and mention these. And then we went in and we gave an extra little bit of help, right, Shawn?
That extra little bit of help is down here. It's visually presented so that you could see that you're supposed to start off with your name and surname. So again, the students would know already how to say my name is, obviously. Yeah. But to be spurred visually to do that is important. Then going on, of course, age and birthday, and so on and so on, so on and so forth.
So we're scaffolding the activity so that hopefully next time the student is able to do this without the support. We're not making things easier, we're making things simpler. Because hopefully with the process comes learning, and we're giving the students tools to understand exactly what it is we need from them. And remember, we're talking about students that might have, for example, attention deficit, yes, or dyslexia, or any other problem, or simply students who struggle to write a text coherently because they don't know how to organize their ideas. So even though we've got something here from the 7th grade, right? We could use the same strategy higher up.
Higher up, yeah.
So
it's really nice to have a model, but this model then is tied with what we're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Exactly. We must keep in mind, though, of course, colors. Colors are important. Colors are important for directing students' attention. We also have to remember there might be students who have a color blindness or can't distinguish between colors.
Exactly. So
you know your students better than we do, so please keep that in mind. You might choose colors accordingly.
Okay. All right. Next activity.
Okay. Is the next activity really?
Okay, you're going to have to work now. Okay.
Yes.
So enough of free time. You better be ready for an activity. Okay.
And because we love this, we're going to watch a video today. Okay. This is the video. It's called The Postcard. So please, we suggest you look it up. It's by Vistaprint. That's why there's the big V there. In this activity, we have here some word clouds. We have 3 different word clouds, and they're purposely different for a reason. Well, they're the same for a reason too. We want to make sure that we have an activity that looks visually relatively similar for all students, so that everybody's doing the same thing. They're on the same page. Yeah. At the same time, they're different for different reasons. Yeah. Okay, let's look at the first one here. The first one is situated horizontally for a very good reason.
You can have students who might feel confused with a word cloud, right? If you have students who will probably get distracted if they have to be moving the paper around, or if they have to
move their head on the screen.
And so that's going to be different. Also, this is going to help students with, for example, dyslexia, or with some sort of difficulty in being able to read in a more
horizontal way.
Yeah. Also, instructions here. Pay attention to instructions. Watch the short film. Mark the events. Again, we're starting instructions with a verb because we're focusing on what we want students to do, right? Also, I'm not sure you can see this probably, but F for father, S for son, and B for both. They're in bold, so that we're providing the student with another visual anchor of what they have to do. All these instructions, you can't just rely on them being written. You have to reinforce the instructions orally as well. Okay. Next one.
This next one. Well, the next one is very tactile and visual, and students might turn their paper, they might turn their heads, as Sandra was saying. And we see that they're all over the page. Now, in this one, the instructions are, after watching, mark the events with F for father, S for son, and B for both. And now there's a challenge for these students, which is what order were they in?
So the same video. The whole class is watching the same video. The whole class needs to focus on who did what, right? But some students are going to have a little bit more work because they're going to have an extra challenge, right? In this case, it was what order were they in?
And they will appreciate that because they'll have something a little bit extra to do in their time. And now the most challenging version, after watching, write the past simple of the verbs. Mark the events with F for father, S for son, and B for both. So here, production is also part of the activity, not just recognition of the verbs.
Also, if you have fast finishers, you can do something else with this, right, Shawn?
You can throw in the third part, which would be put them in order afterwards.
Yeah.
So if you see a student who's sitting there and all finished, all done, by all means, go over and say, put them in order.
Okay. So this way we're not singling out any student because this is also going to interfere with issues of motivation because nobody wants to be singled out. No kid wants to be, okay, you're the one that is different, right? So we have to be very tactful of that. We have to be very careful so that we don't make the students feel that they're being singled out. Right?
Exactly. So
we're going to try the activity now, right?
Yes, this is going to be fun.
All
so
right.
if you look at underneath us
I've always
on
wanted
YouTube
to do
here,
this. Look below.
Look below
Right.
by the description,
And
you will find a PDF. You will find it's called the Postcard Handout. And if you click on that, it'll go to your transferencias or to your downloads folder, and you will have this same handout, a little bit prettier actually. And what you should do is, if your birthday is between January and April, you will do the first activity, the one that's more horizontal. If your birthday is between May and August, you will do the one that's more, well, crisscrossy.
Tactile.
But with the past tense provided. And if your birthday is between September and December,
tough luck, sorry.
You have to put in the past simple of the verbs. Okay, so we're going to put this into action. We're going to watch the video one time and hope you have a little fun.
Okay,
so
just make sure you're doing the exercise because we're watching.
We're watching. We're going to catch you if you don't.
All right.
You go ahead. You turn it on.
Time is moving at the speed of light. The engine's cold. The fire's bright. It's miles and miles to go tonight. Hold on tight. There will always come a time. You probably thought I lost my mind. Dreamers search for something true. What to do? Miles and miles to go tonight. Hold on tight. Hold on tight.
All right, so that's it. Hopefully you managed to do it. If we were in a class, we would have the students watching the video again, maybe after giving them some time to try the activity and then just playing the video again to check if they were right or wrong, because you're teachers, we're not going to put you through that. What we would like to know from you at this moment is, and if you can type it in the chat box, that would be great, is how you feel your students might react to this, okay? Anything there, Shawn?
No, not yet, but
Not
it'll
yet.
come. It'll come.
Okay.
We could also do a speaking activity with this as well now. Try to negotiate what was first, what was second, what was third, and so on and so forth. So let's move on.
Sorry, just to interrupt you, using months is a good way to differentiate activities, right? But just make sure that the students you want to be doing a certain document or a certain activity fall into that month. Okay, so actually it might not be the best way to divide it in your class, because if you have a kid who was born in January, another one who was born in October, and you want them to be doing this activity, that would mean that one would have the most challenging, and you wouldn't want that. So you have to find about other ways of dividing the activity.
But again, you know your students the best.
All right, more. Okay, so we had an elephant, now we have an ape, right? Don't worry, we'll get to it.
We have some good news. Students like to work with videos.
They
Thank you
do?
for that comment, yes.
Yeah, we thought so.
And we have some teachers too who are used to doing this activity with this kind of activity with their students,
All
which is
right.
also good, some
And
good
it
news.
works. That's what we want to see. It's perfect that some of you have already used something similar to this, because then we can actually show you that it works. It's just not two trainers being here. We're also teachers. We also use this in our classes, okay? All right, next activity, we're going to make you move.
She's going to command me, I suppose, because I'm going to represent all you teachers out there.
Yeah, but I'm going to make them work as well, okay?
Of course.
So do you remember Tomasz from that lovely picture my Rafa drew? Yeah? Okay, so one of the things the teacher complained about Tomasz is that he's very fidgety. He never stands still. He's never still, okay? So just a comment. If you're dealing with kids with ADHD, the movement is annoying to us adults, not to them kids. To them, it's actually a strategy that helps them stay focused. Incredible, right? But that's the reality, okay? So we go through primary school and kids are moving around and they have a hard time sitting down, and then they move to quinto ano, 5th grade, and we want them to stay still. But what happens is that sometimes they spend too much time, too long sitting down, which happens right now with all the cuts of breaks and everything due to the pandemic. So it's very nice to every now and then provide a little activity that's almost like a brain teaser, something that's going to make them move around, okay? So this one is very simple. And if you're thinking about vocabulary that you need to revise, okay, this could be done, for example, with the body. All right, so what do? You ask your students to stand up. They don't have to move around. They don't have to disrupt the classroom. They don't have to touch each other or anything.
And I'm asking myself what teacher Sandra's got in her back pocket. Why to do this?
Yeah, basically.
But okay, I'm going to move around.
So I'm moving around, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to revise, because I need to start talking about description, right? Describing people. But before that, I want to revise the body. So I'm going to ask my students to touch certain parts of their body as I ask them, okay?
You mean like head, shoulders, knees, and toes?
Basically like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Now, this also allows me to be able to see what you know and what you don't know.
Okay.
Okay? But it also provides kids the opportunity to look around and see if they're right or if they're wrong. Okay? So it's a bit of peer check in a different way. Okay? So let's give it a try.
Scared.
You don't have to stand up if you don't want to, but I would really, really appreciate if you do
can't
try
see
to
you,
do
so
the
you're
exercise. Okay? Yeah? Are you sure? Okay, so off we go. So Shawn, the first thing you're going to touch is touch your nose. Good, that is your nose. Now, touch your leg. Okay, good. Touch your eyebrow. Okay, that's good. Touch your kidneys. Kidneys, not your back. It's a bit lower there. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. Show me your wrist. Okay, right. And then if the kids sometimes don't know the word, and none of the kids know the word, you're going to be able to show them, right? And you can use tactile and also some TPR activity that's going to help them a little bit.
And maybe with a little visual reinforcement, a quick write on the board, but without it being a long
Yeah.
vocabulary activity.
Yeah, something that I used to do when we didn't have this issue with the pandemic was that I would then ask the students to close their eyes, and we would do the same exercise but with their eyes closed to help their memory, okay? And I would go to them, and when they got it wrong, I would actually direct their hand to the correct part of the body that we were working on, okay? That's going to be a little bit of
Reinforcement.
Yes.
Yeah,
reinforcement.
definitely.
Then, obviously, you can turn this into an activity for consolidation, right? So you've got the picture with the arrows or the lines, and you just ask them to write the words. But before that, they've already been able to revise that vocabulary that is probably there in the back of their minds, okay?
So that was a very nice way of getting stimulation in the classroom,
Yeah.
right? And now we get on to the activity.
Yeah.
We're going to have to write a description. Now this, we might have a different kind of description activity, but this one here is taken from Scola Virtual, and it's one that's previously termed as NAA worksheets,
Yeah.
from between 6, number 4.
So this could be, for example, for homework, right? So you can have an activity in class that involves a little bit of movement. Then you go to a second part, which could be an exercise from the book or an exercise from a worksheet. And then you move on to something that you could find in Scola Virtual, specifically for students with that at that moment need some sort of assistance, right? And this could be, like I said in the beginning, assigned specifically to certain students, so to help them, give them that little bit of extra practice. We do, however, have to be careful with providing these students with extra work, because the tendency is to give them a lot more, and it can't be that much more. So this could be, for example, an exercise that we give to them as an alternative to something else. Okay, so it's also good to not overload them with homework, because these kids often study and work twice as hard and they get half the results, and it's very frustrating for them as well.
But
Not all of them, but
keeping
yeah.
in mind this activity here, if it were done in the classroom and the other students were writing their own description, it would take them longer without any sort of guidance like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So the more challenged, the students who need more challenge or want more challenge could just write without any sort of guide,
Exactly.
perhaps.
Exactly.
Maybe just with some bullet points telling what they should do.
Yeah.
Whereas this one here could be presented like this, or maybe our proposition from earlier with the color coding even
Exactly.
for other students.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways of dealing with that. Now we're going to do the same kind of, follow the same kind of spirit, looking at a speaking activity. This is a speaking card from Top Teen 7. And we're going to look at some house rules. Do you have house rules in your house, Sandra?
Of course I do. I've got 3 kids and 3 cats. I would not survive with 3 teenage boys in the house if I didn't have rules.
And do you have one like this? We always have family time together in the living room. You try?
Yeah, we try. We
Okay.
always have dinner together, which is important, right?
What kinds of things can you do in your living room?
Well, we can play with the cats. We can't eat. Yeah, because I have to clean, so we can't eat, right?
And you're a little lenient as a mom, right? Is there anything you shouldn't do?
Well, you shouldn't put your feet up on the coffee table, but it's...
Sometimes it's okay.
Yeah,
All right,
sometimes it's
all right. So as a speaking card, it has all of the prompts here, right?
Yeah. Plus, how is this laid out? So you've got a balloon here, a speech balloon here with Simone talking about about her rules. Then you've got the instructions. Simone has important house rules her parents set for the whole family. Look at the topics and talk about them. Add some rules of your own if you like. Follow the model.
And perhaps then afterwards, there will be some extras that are not talked about here. Some things might be skipped over. We don't know.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a very spontaneous kind of speaking exercise, right?
Now, the issue here is, again, instructions. Okay, so instructions need to be clear. They need to be straight to the point. They need to focus on what really is important, what you really want the students to do with the activity. Okay, so obviously what we're saying is for all students, but this is all the more relevant when we're talking about students who have some sort of attention deficit or who need a little bit more guidance in their work. So what we did was this.
Okay.
It's exactly the same activity, right?
So
Shawn?
copy, paste, right? Control C, Control V, if you like those kinds of terminologies. Copy, paste, and you'll notice this font. This font is Open Dyslexia. Notice here the bottom of the font is a little bit heavier, and this helps to direct the eye and helps many readers
Yeah.
focus better on the words.
For example, this is something that I'm trying to do in my own classes. I'm trying to convert all my slides, all my worksheets, all my material to Open Dyslexia. This is a free font. You can find it online. You just download it to your computer, and then you can use it in all your documents that you use for teaching. It's not going to interfere with any of your students, but it's really going to make the difference to the students who need it. Okay, so because like Shawn was saying, the weight of the font is heavier at the bottom, right? So it's going to help letters stay on that line instead of jumping around. Okay,
But that's not the only thing that's
No.
aesthetic part that's been
Yeah.
changed, right?
So again, looking at instructions, our instructions have changed. Let me see if this is going to work like I planned it.
Ooh.
Okay, so here's what we did with the instructions. Talk about Simone's house rules. This is what I want. Use the topics to help you. This is what you have to do. Use have to, can't, should, shouldn't. Okay, so this is what we want the students to be able to do with the exercise. So this is what we should tell them in the instructions, right? And then we've got the prompts. Same prompts as in the other one, right? Starting with verbs mainly, okay? So that you can guide the students into what they need to do, right?
It's certainly not a writing activity, but there can be a little bit of time to prepare, matching up what you have to do, what you can't do.
Yeah.
For somebody who might not be able to do this quite so spontaneously.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so some time for reflection now, okay? Let's start thinking about everything we've done. So the word inclusiveness only has two E's, right? But
There are 4. The first one is enrich. Okay, we have binoculars here because we have to look for things, right? And we get things from the internet, we get things from different places. And the world, anything in the world is viable for the English classroom practically because
everything, or
comes in English.
exactly.
So-
So the fact that we are able to bring real life material into our classroom should not be neglected. The fact that we can bring the internet and all those things into our classroom, if possible, and we know and we are aware that a lot of schools still don't have a good connection and all, we know all of that, okay? So we're just saying that if you do have that resource available to you, you can use it in class. If you don't, you can try and use it outside the classroom by setting exercises that the students, or tasks or projects that the students can do afterwards.
And if you're preparing and adapting materials, please keep in mind some of the things we've talked about today with the fonts and different things. Using authentic text is wonderful. So if you can use a real website, great. But if you can't, copy and paste it and put it in this better font, this more easy to access font. The second point is to encourage, okay? And even the interaction with the materials can be encouraging. Obviously, teachers encourage, but having success, you're working with something that's realistic, that's timely, that's interesting, will bring encouragement as well.
Also, these children, or some of these children, their self-esteem is quite low, so they need tons and tons of encouragement.
Positive reinforcement and a chance to succeed.
Exactly, because they're so used to I can't do it that it has to change into the I might and eventually I can.
Yeah. Then, when students are engaged, when they're encouraged, they can then engage, okay? And that's where you get the two-way communication between students and teacher. And this is our goal in the classroom, obviously. And last but not least, this kind of activity or this kind of process will bring in enabling.
Yeah, which is what we want. We want to enable students to be able to do this eventually without all this scaffolding, all this extra support, right? We want to create, and this for me personally is something very important. I want to be able to help my students acquire tools, strategies that are going to help them in the future, so that I don't have to always provide them with the scaffolding, because I know that sometimes they won't be able to get the scaffolding.
But being able to have success several
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
brings later a couple things. First of all, the aha moment where it works without that extra help. And the second is this feeling of, yes, I can, as you were saying
Yeah.
earlier. So just to repeat those very important things.
All right, so how do we do this? What are the mechanisms that we need here,
Some
Shawn?
things that we've really been pointing out is adaptation is really important. And it's not always so hard when we have things electronically, okay?
Yeah.
We love technology. We really do. And we understand that not everybody does, but you know, the copy paste function is so important. Put it into Word and make these little tweaks.
Sometimes it's just about choosing. It's as simple as choosing one exercise that is not as going to pose such a huge difficulty for the student. So sometimes it's just a matter of choosing the right exercise from the book. Sometimes it's just as simple as rewriting instructions. And I can't stress this enough. Instructions are really, really important.
And changing the instructions
Yeah.
and reading them.
Yeah.
Because we know our learners, and that's where we make these little changes to differentiate,
But not single out.
but not single out. We've been talking a lot about this one.
Yeah.
Supplementing, of course, is part of this whole process as well. And, of course, as Sandra was showing us, use a
Yeah.
little movement.
Yeah. And using movement, not just with the little ones. Of course, I think that it's essential for the little ones, but even as they grow up, and I know that we want to keep them sitting still, otherwise they're going to destroy the classroom, but maybe they won't. Just maybe they won't. Okay? Yeah? So,
Tips.
Hey. All right, so Shawn, what can we do before class?
Well, first of all, we should allow some time for collaborative work. Okay, think about when we really should be working together and the other times when we might work alone. Okay? This collaborative work, of course, allows for the scaffolding. It also allows for a little bit of conversation and, of course, a little bit of movement and just talking across the aisles, doing what they have to do to get the task completed. Of course, prepare clear instructions, okay? Everything in my head is all clear.
Yes, but then when I put it in paper, maybe it's not as clear as I thought it would be for the students, okay?
And once it's on paper, repeat it.
Yeah.
Read it aloud.
Then allow some time in your planning to just go in and peek and check, how is the notebook organized? I usually establish a plan with my students beginning of the year of how they're going to organize their notebooks, so that it's not just lesson summary, answers to the exercises. So try to organize the notebook in a way that makes sense to you, but also that makes sense to the student. And you do have to have a little bit of time in your class just to go around and check if the student is maintaining an organized notebook. Don't do it just once a term as you would with other students.
Of course, through all of this, use positive language, okay? Really do this is so much more powerful than don't do this.
Especially if you have things like, don't forget to mention. Why not use remember to mention? Focus on what you want the students to do and not on what you don't want the students to do, okay? The most important is for us to keep reinforcing that positive language of the things that we do want them to do.
Because there will be times in class where you will have to say don't.
Oh, yeah.
So save that don't for the times when you really need to say don't.
Okay. Also allow some time for brain breaks in your planning, okay? Remember that attention span varies, right? And that kids need those little moments throughout the lesson that they need to be able to let go a little bit. Now, in class,
There, we can encourage actually the use of mobile devices at times.
we know that this is a topic that is quite controversial, right? We know that a lot of people still are still very resistant to having them in the classroom. Personally, Shawn and I think that they can be useful tools if you know how to use them, if you have clear boundaries with your students on
Have a
how you're going to
policy.
use them. Yeah. And those things are established in the beginning of the year.
Because the pluses are.
Exactly. So you have, for example, if you have a student who keeps forgetting their homework, who keeps forgetting their tests, right? If you have them install an app on their phone, for example, you've got School Planner for Android, or if your students have an iPhone, they can go and download My Study Life, which is basically going to be the same. These are planners for students. These are like our when we were younger, we had these diaries for the school year, right? And it's the same. But the thing is that these kids tend to lose everything, but they don't usually lose their phone, right? So this is going to provide you with calendars, with checklists for homework. They're perfect. Alarms with reminders to do homework or to do that there's a test in 2 days or things like that, okay?
And they are colorful.
Yes,
okay?
very
This is
colorful.
also another thing. It's a very motivating sort of thing to use rather than having a little notebook where a student nowadays maybe would say, even if it's a pretty planner, they might not care. However, this is really nice. And then you've got the reminders. It comes up, says, you have a test in 5 days.
Yeah.
And this is also another important point. Using these kind of organizers can help their entire academic performance.
Yeah.
Because getting students into this kind of habit can help them set reminders for their other tests, for their other assignments in their other classes.
And therefore, we're working on student autonomy, which is something that we really want, right?
Yep, and that's a 21st century skill, in
Exactly.
fact.
All right.
Okay, we should also consider at times extending deadlines, okay? If we see that things are not developing as we're going, as we expected, we may extend a deadline.
Especially with homework, okay? We need really to think,
In
is
this
it
phase, for sure.
important that this student does this homework for tomorrow? Or can I give a little bit of extra time? Can I give them 2 days instead of 1 to do the homework, right?
And things are very difficult nowadays, so this is a really good, important thing to remember.
Yeah. For me personally, I love using color. So
Mm-hmm.
color coding for me is a must, okay?
And I love visuals. So
Exactly, that was going to say. You love visuals. So.
they're going into the infographics, images, and videos, showing them in the class. Of course, it requires us to look before class, but there are so many things out there, and you have them all loaded up on the internet. So bringing these things will obviously catch attention.
So if you want to know a little bit more about these topics, and again, we know that there is a lot coming out, but sometimes if we go online and we start looking, we get lost because we don't know. Yeah, it's overwhelming. We don't know where to look, or we don't know which materials are actually good to look at. There are a couple of websites. As you've probably noticed throughout the session, we've been focusing more on children who tend to not pay attention or miss instructions or move around a lot, right? So those issues go into questions like ADHD. And for that, you've got a number of good places to check.
And can I just make a suggestion?
Yeah.
This is a 21st century skill. Why don't you take a picture of this this slide if you like?
Yeah.
It's a great idea, but you will be getting this PDF, so you will get these links that are, great
You'll
for
be
you
able
to look
get
more
them.
into.
Yeah. I would suggest from this one, this YouTube video, it's about 6 minutes long, and the second part of the video is not that important because it's kind of promotion, but the first part shows what it's like to have ADHD if you're a child. Okay, and common myth is that we have more children nowadays with the ADHD. That's not true. We have more kids being accurately diagnosed because this has been around for centuries. It's not, as some people believe, something recent. Okay,
It's the awareness that's really changed.
yeah,
And this is an experience sort of thing.
Yeah.
You experience it.
Yeah, and it's not something that goes away. That's another myth. People think that ADHD disappears with time. It doesn't. It will not disappear. It just, according to the mechanisms we're able to give to students, they'll be able to live a more normal or controlled, organized life. Okay? Now, my go-to book personally is this one, Mais Forte do Que Eu. It's written by Ana Rodrigues and Lou Antunes, right? It's a very easy, simple book with lots of indications for teachers, not just parents, but for teachers as well. So it can be very, very useful. Okay? All right, so.
Why was this here? You saw the elephant, you saw the monkey.
Yeah. So probably you know where I'm going with this, because there's this meme going on online about animals and climbing trees and all of that, right? Well, I want to give that a twist. So you see, we do know that we all learn in different ways at different stages of our lives, right? We do know that these children are not less intelligent than other children. They have not, you know, when we say that they've got potential, of course they've got potential. They don't have anything that's going to keep them from being able to do this apart from themselves, right? So if we try to teach these two, which are probably some of the most intelligent animals on the planet,
Definitely.
if we try to teach them the same way, this is not going to work. And we're going to have one that's going to get there pretty easy, pretty fast, no problem whatsoever. And we've got one that's going to be very, very frustrated. And what he's going to do is he's going to knock that tree down. He's going to be disruptive. He's going to be frustrated. He's going to be angry. And he's going to disrupt my classroom. Right? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. So if you have any questions that you want to ask us, we have some time now for questions, right?
Please put them here. We're seeing your questions. We've really appreciated comments.
Yeah. We also have our emails here, just in case you want to get in touch. Please do. Feel free to do so. So if we've got any questions, we do have something there.
Oh, lots of thank yous.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
We're going to enjoy sitting down and reading this in a little bit. But if you do have questions, yes.
It was a shame that we couldn't show you the results for the Mentimeter, but don't worry, we're going to try and find a way of making them get to you, okay? So it's this tech thing that sometimes doesn't work. You know how it is, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Lots of thanks and acknowledgements. So this is great. And I think it means mission accomplished.
I think so. All right, so if you're a bit embarrassed and you don't want to ask any questions now because your colleagues are watching, that's okay. You can ask us a question later on using our emails, okay? So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
We really hope this was useful, because that's our aim, is to help teachers, help kids out there as well. So thank you.
Keep our motivation high, and thank you, and we'll see you around.
Yeah, bye-bye. See you soon.